Over the last few months, I've gotten really deep into cross training, trying to improve my endurance, and I want to build up my skill set for hard enduro riding. Mostly this has meant a ton of mountain biking, which has also meant a lot of money spent on parts. Recently, my big issue has been that I needed to find a new set of clipless pedals for the mountain bike. Now, there are a ton of options when it comes to clipless pedal platforms, and they're not all made equal. I'm not actually sure why they call it clipless, since what you're doing is actually clipping into the pedal, but that's the deal. My S-Works mountain bike came originally with an off-brand setup that broke down quickly, so I've set out on a quest to figure out how to replace the platform without breaking the bank. The right style for you depends heavily on how you ride the bike and the kinds of terrain you ride on. I've found that unless you're a pro cyclist who knows exactly what they want from the pedals and can't find it in the classic stuff, the best option is to stick with the basics. You can't go wrong with the Shimano system. Most of the styles of pedals that are out there are actually named after Shimano. It's the Shimano Pedaling Dynamics, SPD. There's two variants, the classic SPD, which was originally made in the 90s and has been improved since, and the newer version, which is SPD SL. The SL variant is more for road biking. It's got a larger cleat that actually extends from the bottom of the shoe a little bit. They're great in that they apply more power to the pedals. There's a larger contact point and you have a little bit more control over them. The downside is you really can't walk on them very well. If you've ever seen cyclists doing the duck walk with their toes in the air, it's because they're trying not to damage the edges of their SL variant or newer cleats. Mountain bikers often stick with the SPD platform because it's much easier to walk on them. The cleats actually recessed up into the shoe a little bit, meaning you have some traction from the shoe, and even in the dirt, you're not damaging the cleat very much. Regardless of the style that you choose and the kind of riding that you do, implementation matters a great deal. If you go on Amazon, there's 1,001 off-brand third-party sellers making SPD and SL compatible products. My advice to you, ignore all of them. Mostly, they're either alternative designs with various trade-offs that you need to know what you're doing with before you dive in, or they're cheap knockoffs that just don't work very well. In many cases, the clipping action is what really suffers with the knockoffs. It's hard to get your foot in or out. It's inconsistent in terms of finding the pedal, and the parts themselves just don't last that long. Fortunately, my bike came with some VP components, SPD style clipless pedals, and I decided to give them a serious try. Unfortunately, my VP-X92s just didn't last that long. Within a couple of months, one of the screws that held the clip in place on the right side snapped out, leaving me with just one foot to pedal home. If I'm honest, however, the problem started long before the pedal actually broke. Clip-in action was inconsistent and stiff. I fell on the bike out in the dirt more times than I'd like to admit because I couldn't actually get my foot out properly. Even with the adjustment screw backed all the way to the loosest side, there was still a lot of drag taking my foot out. It just didn't work well. The other major problem with the pedals is that because they're meant to have one side for regular shoes and one side for the clipless platform, I invariably found that every time I needed to get into them in a hurry, they were upside down for the clipless system, meaning I'd have to flip the pedal and then clip in. That's a major problem when you're trying to start out in the middle of a hill climb, at a stop sign, or other places where getting going fast and having reliable power is a major benefit. While the SPD system works really well in my opinion, but implementation matters a great deal, and finding one that worked really well for me was important. After a bunch of research, I opted for the Shimano SPD-M520 cross-country platform. I'm following my own advice here and sticking to the tested platform because I don't have a specific reason to go for a higher grade option. So far, I've been incredibly happy with the Shimanos. Clip-in action's surprisingly easy, and they hold tighter than I expected even on the loosest setting, meaning that I'm very confident I'll be able to get my foot in or out of the pedal quickly so that I can put a foot down on steep hill climbs, meaning I can push deeper into the hill. I can also clip in quickly if I need to start at a stop sign or in the middle of a hill where getting going fast is really important. Despite being really easy to get into and out of the pedal, I've found that they also hold really well, so I have a lot of confidence going downhill, not worried that my foot's gonna pop off accidentally. If you're wondering why I'm even bothering with all this clipless nonsense, I'll tell you that clipless pedals are a modern marvel. I honestly don't know how I rode without them, and I think that if you try them, you'll never go back. I know I wouldn't. I don't think that you can get your maximum potential as a cyclist without a clipless system. Let me explain why. With traditional pedals, you've only got about 40% of your leg stroke available for the power stroke of each pedal cycle. With clipless systems, you can pull in addition to push on the pedal, which means that you effectively get a 360-degree rotation for your legs to apply power to the crank. There's two things that happen there. One, not only do you get that full rotation, but you can actually push and pull at the same time. Now, on your thigh muscles, there's different sets of muscles for pushing and pulling that are different action, and you can actually adjust your pressure back and forth between those muscle groups in order to improve endurance, improve power output when you need it, and save your joints. I've found that there's a lot less stress on my knees when I alternate back and forth between pushing and pulling with a given leg especially after a long time in the saddle. If you're new to clipless pedal platforms, where you just need something that's not going to break the bank, you really can't go wrong with the classic PD-M520s. I think they're a great pedal and I've been super happy with them so far. I'll put some links in the description that give you some more information about the pedals, about the cleats that I use, which are also Shimano parts, and about the shoes themselves. I'd be remiss if I didn't have a quick note in here about the shoes. I don't actually think the shoes matter that much. People might argue with me on that point, but I figure as long as the cleat can bolt onto the shoe properly and the shoe fits your foot okay, the style of the shoe is really not as important as you might think.